All right, god damn it, I think this is episode 3. Episode 3 of motherfucking Decryptid Podcast, and here we go.
Is it episode 3 though? Didn't we talk about Hell in the Cell? Is that an episode?
That's like our riffing sesh. At least that's what I titled the video that I sent you. And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Decryptid Podcast. My name is Justin. Across state borders is Seth. We're going to be taking care of you. Sit back, relax, grab a drink, which I feel like is very appropriate for today's topic. Seth, what the hell are we doing today?
Well, we're talking about quite a few things today. I don't know how we're going to be taking care. I don't want you to make promises that we can't uphold. I don't know if we're going to be taking care of the listeners today. We're going to be talking about hopefully some funny stuff. Definitely some stuff. You know how we came upon the topic for today? It's that just like a lot of other things that we discussed talking about, I think it's something that we just wanted to shoot the shit about because it is a little interesting, a little funny, probably a little fucked up.
Listen, nothing that we would condone, right? Let's not condone any of this behavior.
Definitely. Maybe a little bit of things that we would condone. We certainly wouldn't condone all of it.
The LSD part, right? We're not condoning. We're not condoning doing physical labor on mass quantities of drugs, right? They're not going to do that.
Physical labor on mass quantities of drugs. Well, it depends what kind of physical labor. I think that there are certain types of physical labor where I would certainly prefer to be on many types of drugs. I don't do drugs, but I can imagine that I would want to be on them if I was doing the types of physical labor that's coming to mind right now.
And there you have it.
You know, like what if you had to roll a boulder up a hill?
I guess I wouldn't want to do it at all. Drugs or no, I'm not rolling boulders up anything.
Do you think
you're going to jail?
Yeah, pickaxe in a ditch.
Yeah, I don't know what is going on here. That sounds like work you would do in a federal prison, and I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah. Prison scares me more than anything in the world. Do you remember the movie Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence?
One of my literally all-time favorites. That movie is
it's so good.
So funny in so many ways.
It is really good. And you know what? I watched that movie in college, not expecting much of it, enjoyed it immensely, and then watched it years later and also enjoyed it immensely, which really sometimes that doesn't happen, and it's fantastic when it does.
Yeah, I think sometimes seeing movies when you're like younger is difficult because you're like, oh no, like this is funny because I'm young and stupid and impressionable, but no, that shit is really funny and very good.
You know what movie holds
in all the ways.
You know what movie holds the fuck up, and we didn't talk about it when we were discussing Hell in the Cell, which was real stupid. Ready to Rumble.
Oh my god, yeah.
Dude, that movie holds up.
If you lose your right nut, is your left nut still your left nut? That's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
What would King do, baby? How many times do you think you saw that movie in the theater?
Several, but I don't think it even comes close to the amount of times I've watched it in public, you know what I mean, or public at home rather.
In public, actually in private, but at home. No, for sure. But that was our Titanic. That was our Titanic.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
You know, my sister saw Titanic in the movie theater 10 times. Emily saw it
10 times.
Yeah, dude. Teenage girls.
It's a 3-hour movie. That's a 30-hour jaunt. No, don't tell me that shit.
But they did. You don't remember that, dude? Teenage girls, when Titanic came out, teenage girls, that's where they lived. And first of all, like, this was, there weren't a lot of the same types of distractions that exist today. The movie theater was a big deal.
Like drinking, because
or
that's
just
the
like
only thing I do.
The or like Instagram and Snapchat and Bumble and whatever other.
Bumble.
I think Bumble is where the kids try to get their little willies nillied. I think
that's a move on topic right away.
I'm not hip to the beat. You were telling me about something just before we went live. You said you can't watch fail videos anymore.
No, I cannot watch fail videos anymore because I am an adult, and it's the same reason that we had and the problems that we had watching the Hell in the Cell match, because oh my god, like I don't know what to tell you. It's just It just hurts to watch. Yeah, I feel bad for everybody involved.
Yeah, definitely. I feel bad. This is how fucked up I am. I feel bad for the insurance companies.
That's a weird thing. The insurance companies are crooks. I don't believe you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yes, but then at the same time, without insurance, what are we gonna do? You know, need the
Just
insurance.
live life to its fullest. That's what I say.
So, but remember when I was playing softball and my leg exploded? I didn't
It's
have
because you
insurance,
have.
and it
That's because you're 8'3" with weak joints. You're a monster. You're a monster in human skin. What's your
I
problem?
I had to wait a year before getting surgery on my my literally my destroyed knee. This is how bad I messed up my knee, everybody. Not only did I break my leg, and this was on an intramural softball field. I wasn't
Oh, that's right. Didn't you break it like right below the knee? Your
uh
tibia.
okay, yes, it was my
You're gonna.
tibia.
You're take your story. I don't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That was part of it. So
Oh,
I was pitching, and there was a slow, like, swinging bunt up the first baseline, and I took a long stride with my right leg, and then I planted on my left leg and went down to field the ball. And as I went down to field the ball, my momentum carried my upper body like over my planted leg, which was bent. I'll try to put it on camera like this, and as I did that, my leg just shot backwards like a bow. It just goes. So I'm fielding like this, and then my knee just goes whoosh. And the injuries sustained were, now prepare yourself. I had a fractured tibia, which is thankfully the smaller bone in your shin and calf. I had a completely torn ACL, a partially torn PCL, a torn MCL, and a ruptured meniscus.
good lord.
Yeah,
A ruptured
my knee.
meniscus.
Yeah, do you
Then
know
your
what a
back.
no, 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 no.
That
The
sounds like
meniscus
something
is
that's in your back.
basically a shock absorber inside your knee, and it's basically like, imagine it being like a jelly donut. Have you heard like the discs in your back, have you heard of them being referred to as like jelly donuts
Kind of,
basically?
yeah, 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 yeah. I think my
So I
sister has a torn meniscus, like permanently. I think
yeah,
like
well,
that's something she suffered
really,
like several years ago, and I think like through several surgeries, they were just kind of like, "That's just the way you are now."
yeah, after a while it's just not gonna hold. It's like you get a scab somewhere, and then if you don't pick it, it'll heal, but if you pick it and it comes back and you pick it, it comes back, eventually it's just scar tissue.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of like how a meniscus works. But anyhow, I ruptured that shit. So it was bad. It hurt. It sucked.
it sounds terrible if I'm gonna
Yeah.
be frank about it.
Yeah. But I'm right there with you, man. I mean, as we get older into our early 20s, I'm kidding. We're both into our 30s.
Yeah.
Um, you just start to feel it, man. It hurts. Everything
Yeah,
hurts.
and I watch these kids, and it's always kids. It's always like 17-year-olds, and they're like riding their bike down the stairs, and there's and like the second the front tire hits the first stair going down, you're like, they're gonna fucking land on there. And then
Yeah.
4 stairs in, they just smash their face open. And it's like, God damn, you stupid bastard! Like,
Yeah, exactly.
how
You
did you
stupid
not see
bastard.
that shit coming? You know?
You know why it just like it doesn't happen to me. Like, I know that I'm not going to die in a freak BMX bicycling accident.
Yeah, I would agree.
R-
Unless one hit me because one
Right.
of these stupid kids ran me. That's a fail,
There
right?
are other things. There are other things I also know. I know that I'm never going to die in or around a hot air balloon, because you wouldn't catch me dead inside one of those motherfuckers.
Right, dude. It just is. Come on.
I
You
know
know
that I'm
who
never going to
flies in
die.
hot air balloons are just rich old white guys with nothing to do. That's like such a rich old white guy thing, is fucking hot air balloons. You know?
How how do hot air balloons exist?
Helium.
Can you explain that? No, no, no. I know. I understand the science and the physics behind it, as much as someone that doesn't understand science or physics
I
can
was gonna
understand science
I
or
was gonna
physics.
I was gonna call you out, but I'd let it go. It's fine.
Um, but so so let's think about what you have there, right? I mean, you
I'm
have
thinking.
a giant balloon that's made of some sort of vinyl, which is flammable, attached to a wicker basket, which is
Jesus Christ.
flammable,
Oh god.
connected connected to each other via, well, probably metal cables, which is not flexible, but could get fucking hot. And then it's powered by a giant flamethrower. Can you explain to me how someone said step 1, let's get a flammable material and make a basket that holds humans. Step 2, let's make the world's largest balloon out of another flammable material. Step 3, let's fill that flammable material with the hot air generated from a gas powered flamethrower. Can you explain to me how that seemed like a good idea?
First of all, I just have to interrupt you. For those of you who just watched me fuck up Seth's feed right away, that's my fault. He doesn't need to know about it. He won't. Nothing. I didn't do anything. Don't worry about it. It's fine. You're fine now. It's all that matters. It was a 7-second blip of delay. But moving quickly back to what you were talking about, hot air balloon, it had to be, at some point, wasn't that a preferred way of travel? Like, was somebody like, or has it always been like an enthusiast or hobby activity?
No, I think it's always been an enthusiast. Well, I mean, obviously I could be wrong.
What about the Hindenburg? On this, that's basically
that's a blimp.
It's the same premise, right? Like, you blow hot air into a big fucking bag and you fly away.
Maybe, but it's the design of it. It's basically it's the difference of like oh man, what's a good like a kite versus a paraglider. Like a paraglider is designed
wind and a sheet. That's all you need. Okay? None of this is relevant to the topic at hand. All right, let's try to bring this back around full circle. What are we talking about today?
Back. Well, we're going to talk about a lot of things, as we discussed. Originally, we had a plan. We were going to talk
as we usually do. We always have a plan, and then we kind of divert from the plan almost effectively.
That's right. So we were going to talk. So here's the thing. Sorry. I put your camera closer to my camera, so it like kind of seems like I'm looking in that direction. But I always find myself glancing up at it, and I don't know where to look. So if
at
it's
your
really
camera, look at your camera.
But it's weird talking to a camera like it.
Put eyeballs and a smiley face on it. That's what you do.
Oh.
There's nothing. Just stare at your lights, man. You gotta do it. Don't stare at me. Don't stare at your monitor and stare at me. You're not talking to me. You're talking to the audience.
I know, but I feel like when I watch people that are doing this kind of thing, they don't always stare at their webcam. If they're making a video,
if you and I were in the same room, then we look at each other. You know what I mean? But we're not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
we're far from the Decryptid studios where we actually meet up in the same room, right?
Yeah,
that might be in a few months when we go platinum, which I don't think you can do in a podcast.
Like Kid Rock going platinum.
Dude, let's not talk about Kid Rock. All right, he had a really disappointing tweet a few weeks ago. It was
really
weird. It was just weird. It was I think it was against like an attack against. Who is that girl? Oh, Taylor Swift. It was some goofy conservative tweet. And not that I want to get into the goods and the bads of conservative and liberalism, but it's just one of these like out of place, like out of pocket tweets that like kind of came out of left field at like 6:45 a.m. by the way. So I know he wasn't up like he just wasn't like he got up in the morning, drank a sip of coffee, maybe took a shower, was like, you know what, dude? I got one. No, it was from the night before. That's a night before tweet.
At 6:45 a.m.
Kid Rock?
Kid Rock is probably 50 years old. I was going to say, you know why he was up at 6:45 a.m.? Because he's a conservative and he has a job for a living.
His job is to entertain millions of people.
And
you get up at 6:45 when you're like an entertainer like that?
Some do, sure.
I feel like you're up later than you would be.
You go to the jam, get swole.
Dude, I've been going to the gym.
Oh yeah.
Get back to the topic. Today, what are we talking about?
Okay. All right. So the original plan was to talk about a influential athlete that played in the major leagues in the 70s into the early 80s. His name is Doc Ellis. I was going to say that he was famous for pitching a no-hitter against the San Diego Padres in 1972. A no-no. While under the influence of LSD or acid. And it was after doing more research about it, the most interesting things about Doc Ellis really weren't that.
I would agree.
He was he was
like a revolutionary kind of his time. Do you know what I mean? Like he had a ton of influence as a black man in the 70s and coming out of a culture where they are just getting their kind of that's just tough to say too. Kind of just coming into their own as a black community, you know what I mean? And
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't
and
know.
not tough to
Obviously,
say, but
well,
in
no,
this
no, not
sense,
tough to say, but it's just like, we're new to podcasting. It's difficult talking about how the blacks felt about their own existence in the 70s with two pasty white people. So
pasty.
it pasty. So it's kind of I guess I'm not pasty. I'm actually very tan.
I'm very
Um,
pasty. You should see my
but
thighs.
I think the audience will understand that sometimes it's difficult to vocalize when we're not used to being on camera talking about race stuff.
Right.
It's not something that we are used to doing. However, he was at the time he was very influential. He was always, I think, ahead of the curve of social issues, and always thought that he was very aware of the social inequities that were present in that day. And
And really love to
um,
push those boundaries too. Doc Ellis was
yes,
like one of those guys that was right at the front line of the kind of the fuck you that society kind of deserved at the time. You know what I
yes,
mean? I think there was a big issue right at the beginning of Doc Ellis's career where he would wear these hair curlers, and the commissioner of baseball, he would wear them during practice. First of all,
that's right.
he would be, they would be practice. This is not a game. They would be practicing in these, and he came out, and the commissioner was like, "You can't wear those in your hair during practice." And it's like, what the fuck? Like, come on. You know what I'm
And
saying?
he basically said, "Fuck you, yeah, I can."
Yeah, absolutely. And he did. And he fucking wore them.
Yep,
You know?
yep. Um, and so yeah, so the his life, he was also quite troubled, and not just his drug use, but this is a man who was married 4 times. There's a documentary on YouTube that both Justin and I watched, and we'll include that in the description because its name escapes me right now.
But,
I think it's
no,
called like
no.
the
It's called No
no no
No. Yep.
no a documentary, because his name's Doc, so
DOCK.
DOCK. So one of his ex-wives talked about how when he finally found that he was released from professional baseball, he became very violent and incredibly frightening. So I also, like, the man passed away relatively recently. I think he did a lot of good things. He also did a lot of horrible things.
He lived
And
a tumultuous life, you know?
yeah, super tumultuous. And originally, the idea for it, not knowing much about him, I didn't even know whether he was white or black. I had no idea. Um, was just to talk about this game where he was on acid and threw a no hitter, and then in doing a little bit of research, discovering that yeah, I think he was definitely messed up. There you go, Justin.
Drop my phone on the floor.
Use your hands much. There's not a ton about that game other than he had mistaken that he had the day off. So the day before, he took a bunch of acid, tripped his face off, and then the next morning, sleeping in some stranger's bed, he was told that hey, you're pitching tonight.
He had
And he
slept through the day, didn't he? So he had taken acid almost 48 hours previous to this game, thinking, okay, I'll take all this acid and tomorrow's my day off and no big deal. He ends up sleeping through his whole day off, and his then girlfriend at the time, or I'm not sure, you might be right, it might be it's stranger's bed.
Yeah.
She comes in and she's like, yo, I just read the paper and you got a pitch. And he's like, no, it's no. She's like, no, it's today. Like, you slept for the last 24 hours because you were...
He's just like, no, he's like, no, I pitched Thursday. Today's Wednesday. She's like, motherfucker, it's Thursday.
Wake up. It's Thursday.
Yeah. I should
Waybase.
I should stop doing impersonations.
Yeah, your impersonation have been on record as being
and she was
horrible.
like, motherfucker, it's Thursday. Just like
better, I suppose. If it's in
Hey,
character, it's not racist. So listen,
right.
he, and the thing is too, is that he is kind of highlighted in this documentary as being this guy, and yes, it was a miraculous feat, and whether he's on acid at the time, is a little debatable, especially kind of in the storytelling that kind of goes down. But it's important to note they're all on drugs, right? What do they call these things? They're called greens or whatever, and they're just fucking quaaludes, basically, for everybody, and they fuck you up on something totally fierce. And
so basically, it was this thing where, I mean, everyone did them, and
everyone.
They were amphetamines as well. So like they were. I don't think it was. I don't know. I know they were all doing quaaludes. I think the drug that they took before the games, I forget what they were called, but it was basically just imagine this. It was Adderall, basically.
Yeah,
they were all taking an insane amount of Adderall.
Yep.
And Doc went on the record and said that he was high every game he pitched in his major league career, which spanned, I think, 12 years. And Doc, he wasn't just a joke. I mean, Doc had really, really good stuff when he came into the league. Obviously, he threw this no hitter while high on drugs. The funniest thing that came out of this no hitter story, and I was really hoping for more hijinks. I was hoping to read about how he didn't know whether he was pitching against a righty or a lefty. He thought some creature was telling him to put the ball where he was putting the ball, but really he was just kind of faded. And he said
Yeah.
that he didn't really have that great a control of his stuff. He walked 8 men during this no hitter.
I did not know
So
that. That's not a beautiful no
it,
hitter.
it,
You
it,
know what
uh,
I mean? That's
certainly,
not a
it's
that's
not
not a
like
27 out no hitter. Yeah.
it's not like he almost had the perfect game.
Yeah.
It's not like he almost had the perfect. So we were going to try to build a whole podcast around that, and this is something that me and Justin have been kind of discussing on and off for several weeks now. And as I did a little bit more research, I didn't. My original idea for this podcast was for it to be fun, and as I read more about him, I didn't know if we were going to be able to make a really fun podcast about it, and I didn't know if it was necessarily right to make a fun podcast surrounding someone who has a fist away. Is this better? You can just tell me if you can't hear me really well. Let me know, because am I good?
Show must go on, baby. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah. um it would have been, maybe down the road we can do a podcast around Doc Ellis's life, if our audience wants to hear it. I'm not sure that the audience that we are hoping to build is going to be super interested in our homework on a man who has one crazy game that we wanted to build a podcast over, and then the podcast turns into talking about race relations in the 70s and his relationship with Roberto Clemente, and how he had 4 wives and how he beat the shit out of half of them, and how he had a million different kids and all that stuff. I just didn't want to talk about that. So what we are going to pivot to is definitely of the same ilk, and actually we are going to work off an article by Gavin Evans, and this is an article by Complex, and it is titled "A History of Athletes Playing While High."
And
And
we should definitely talk about how I think all athletes have got to be high. You know what I mean? Like,
on a lot of
I think
things,
I think the only one that wouldn't be high is the fucking is like hockey players. Like, they have to be the least high, because
come
it's
on.
cold. It's cold in there. One, nobody wants to be high and cold. Second, they have knives on their feet, right? They're literally called blades. First of all, they're very sharp. They know the ramifications of possibly stabbing somebody with the skate. Although I'm positive that's never happened. Has anybody ever just taken off their skate? Wait, Happy Gilmore did it.
Happy fucking Gilmore,
Yeah,
dude.
He did it. Let's be real. He did it. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's just a fascinating. When you sent me this article, I was kind of like, okay, I'm on the fence about this, but then you kind of like delve into it a little bit more, and the article doesn't go deep into every player that does it, but I mean, we'll kind of touch base on a lot of these situations. But man, people are just on a lot of drugs all the time. It's kind of goofy,
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And just to stick with baseball for a little while, because we're gonna cover a couple different sports here, but I think as you guys can probably imagine, baseball being the long, drawn out sport that it is,
And the worst
Justin,
sport on the list.
which
It's
is
the
just
fucking worst sport.
insane to say.
Get
I'm a
on your
huge
mic.
baseball fan.
I'm gonna punch you in the face.
I'm a
Put
huge
that-
baseball fan.
There you go.
God,
Put that
dude,
mic in your fucking mouth.
dude. If any fist could fit between my lips and this microphone, it is the world's smallest fucking fist.
So,
But
yeah, listen, baseball is awful, and I'm gonna get a lot of blowback. And I'm sure.
Why?
Send me the emails, because it's okay. First of all, I'm tired of these 5-hour escapades that a baseball game can turn into. I think it can become outrageously boring. Now, if you have a high run game, people are knocking dingers, and it's whatever, I don't mind, and I can kind of watch it from there. And I think it comes a lot of the time from being a long-standing Cubs fan, where people then kind of you're just sitting here begging and pleading for a World Series win. And I think after 2016, I finally was just like, I don't have to give a shit about baseball anymore. And I think a lot of my animosity comes from just being a Cubs fan, if I'm going to be totally honest.
I mean, being a Cubs fan went from being the worst thing in the world for literally my entire life to the greatest thing in the world in 2016, back to being really shitty
Yeah, back to just, I mean, the Cubs are just this fucking, I hate
They're a
baseball.
team that should be incredibly good, and they're not, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they cannot win baseball games on the road.
I just think it's an ultimately boring sport to watch. You know, it's like the sport is built for me to take a nap between the 2.5 hours that it starts and finishes. So I wake up at the beginning. I will say there's something to be said about October baseball. That's a little bit more exciting. I think because there's more on the line. How many games are in a baseball season?
162.
That's literally 100 games more than they need. Like, that's so bonkers. 162 games in the course of, what, 6 months? That's
April to October.
So just a lot of dirty men on a dirt field and not enough steroids. Maybe metal bats. Maybe metal bats would save baseball and more steroids. That's all I'm saying. Take the roids.
I don't think you'd be able to build netting strong enough to stop the howitzers that would be flying into the crowd if major leaguers
you'd have to put like a bulletproof glass structure around the pitcher too, because there's no way he gets one in the face that he'll ever survive that, you know.
He would be dodging balls that were traveling 165 miles an hour. it would like graze your arm and your other arm would fall off. It would be fucked.
God. So why don't we talk a little bit more about Doc Ellis, and then we can move on into the other characters of baseball, like the article that you threw up for me, because I really did, like I said, I like some of these articles. But you know, you have Babe Ruth in the picture, and you know, Mickey Mantle is in the picture. A lot of people, real fucking high on drugs. Okay.
Yeah. So, dude, I don't have too much more to say on Doc Ellis. I covered all the things that I want to cover about him. He kind of makes me feel shitty. His life makes me sad.
So Doc Ellis was coming up through the minor league. I think he was like he knew that he had wanted to play professional baseball when he was young, and I mean when he got in there, and he's got a good career behind him, right? It's not just this game. That he didn't just throw a no-hitter, and that's like the culmination of his entire career. But beyond,
he won like 150 games. He was a good professional pitcher,
right? And I think that
above average.
Yeah, and I think like I said, I guess we did talk about it. He just was kind of at that forefront of the like I said earlier, the fuck you that like the kind of culture needed at the time, because you're coming out of a really stale and stagnant 50s. You're talking about the intro to the boomer population, and then in the 60s obviously you have the hippie culture and the major drug culture that kind of followed into that, and then it kind of like the 70s is kind of it's not as bad as the 80s, but the 70s is kind of like the hangover culture of the 60s, and that kind of always escalates. And I don't think it kind of came, what did you call the 2000s? What did you call them?
The aughts.
The aughts, okay. They didn't get it as bad from the 90s, because the 90s was kind of whack. Just a bunch of fucking pissy crybabies. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, the 90s wasn't whack at
like
all.
Eddie Vedder. So you have a lot of people who, from the 70s that are kind of coming out of this really dirty 60s era on a lot of drugs. And I think Doc Ellis was, like I said, right at that forefront of just kind of being part of that counterculture. And I think for me, that's really what a lot of my entertainment from him and the value from him comes from.
Certainly part of the counterculture. Really what made him special in that regard was, so the Pittsburgh Pirates were the most diverse team in the major leagues, and they
have an all-black lineup. They had an all-black.
Not all black, but all. They referred to themselves as way, but they said the first all-colored. So basically, Puerto Rican black.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, because they did. Yeah, Roberto Clemente wasn't black, obviously, but yeah, you're right. They had.
I think Roberto Clemente was half black.
So they had at a time where nobody had done something like this, and baseball was like, you know, it's such the old sport that it is, you know, and probably one of the most like hard-nosed, like this is our American sport. It was probably one of the last vestiges of like white hope as far as sports came. So when these guys came into the league and were so talented, you know, at a time, like I said, in the 60s and 70s, that's a great story to tell. So,
well, that's the thing about Doc Ellis, right? So 20 years prior was Jackie Robinson, who came into the league. He was the only one. And I think that in his career, in order for him to assimilate and do what he needed to do at the time, which was the best thing for, diversity and inclusion in professional sports, was to be as absolutely professional and steadfast as humanly possible, and just kind of
Absolutely.
put blinders on to everything that he must have been hearing, coming from the stands, coming from reporters, just coming from anyone. I mean, wherever
Yeah.
he went, his life was not, you're no longer Jackie Robinson. Now you're Jackie Robinson, the first black baseball player, and you have to deal with everything that comes with that.
And when
Now
you hear these, go ahead.
Doc Ellis played 20 years later, and now, I think that as a whole, they've been around a little bit longer. Obviously, you're still dealing with racism, but now you have the civil rights movement that is, 6, 7 years ago. At the time he threw the no hitter, he played on into the 80s. But I think more Black Americans were, especially more Black athletes, were embracing who they were and their culture.
When I
And
think a lot, yeah,
he,
I think white culture too, and the culture of America was also starting to embrace that a lot more.
right, exactly. And like think that, yeah, and like, more mainstream opinion was that a lot of like counterculture and also, black subculture was really cool and really influential. And that's what, that's what Doc Ellis was. Doc Ellis was not polite. Doc Ellis was not, he didn't have blinders
You
on
know
to
what he
that shit.
kind
If
of
there was,
reminds me of? He kind of reminds me of Kama, aka the Godfather, aka Pimpin' Ain't Easy kind of style baseball player. Such a fun and like cool thing to watch. Like all of his interviews when he was younger, just like fun and funny to watch. And he's just got a great persona about him. And I think he would have been really fun to like interview or attempt to interview. He got a lot of
yeah,
fun moments to him.
he was certainly ahead of his time. He was certainly
Yeah.
ahead of his time.
Cool.
All in all, I can't sit here and in good faith say that Doc Ellis was a good person. I can say that his existence probably had a good influence on sports as we know it today, and society and culture as we know it today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's move on.
With that,
Who's our next topic
well,
on the docket?
how can we start discussing drug use in baseball without kicking it off with the great Bambino,
The babe, right? The
the
drunkest man in baseball.
the Sultan of SWAT, the
Oh
King
god.
of Crash, the
This
great Bambino.
this fat tub of shit. Listen, the one of the funniest things I think about when I think about baseball and I think about this guy playing baseball, and he is just this guy walking up just ham drunk on whatever he was drinking, whiskey, just whiskey stained jersey, sitting on like I could just like me, if you've been with me, just kind of at the end, like just listen, I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna hit this fucker out of the park. So he just walks up and he's hammered drunk. He's got the cigar in his mouth, right? Because you could smoke and play baseball, because that's how the fucking 20s were, And he just would rocket these goddamn home runs out of the park. And
Yeah.
I just can't believe sometimes where the talent kind of comes in,
Well, dude,
and where you're fucked up,
Here's what it is. So a couple things, right? I don't think that hitting has evolved as much as pitching in baseball. Pitching now is
yeah.
pitching now is insane, right? So like someone throwing hard in the 20s was throwing like mid 80s, and you're throwing hard. That is a changeup in today's game. But you still swung a bat. Guys are obviously a million times better and more athletic now. Back then, you were still swinging a bat, right? So I play softball. We just talked about how I busted my knee playing softball. I have teammates that get drunk and are insanely good. And obviously, hitting a slow pitch softball, not as difficult as hitting an 85-mile-an-hour fastball. But a professional athlete hitting a flat 85-mile-an-hour fastball, when you're used to it, probably is handleable enough for the very best in the world to do whatever the fuck you want before a game and still be able to put wood to leather, if you will.
But to take your stance in the batter's box, basically using the bat as a cane because you're so fucking shithoused, like that's really saying something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but if you're always drunk, it probably would have been more difficult for him to get in there sober.
I think
Not
you're
only not only drunk, but also the man would eat 30 hot dogs a day, according to every source I've ever heard in my entire
This guy is
life.
like the quintessential man's man at the time, until you find out he's probably fucking raging racist. I don't know, but
he wasn't Ty Cobb.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I feel like if you're from the 20s, you're
he...
just naturally probably a dick.
No, I don't think. I don't think.
I'm lumping all of you 20s people in there. So if any of you happen to listen to this podcast and you were born in 1920, I know you were a racist prick. Okay, don't even fucking lie.
Listen here, see, don't lump us in with those others.
I'll take the heroin as I see it, see, and I'm gonna hit the baseball, and it's gonna go right out of the goddamn park. Hey, you know what? Both of us hit that. That was good. That we did a good impression there.
Just reading this article. This article is fucking ruthless, dude. Leave it to Complex, by the way. I guess I shouldn't talk shit about Complex when we're basing this entire podcast off their article.
Whatever
but
we want.
They're the end of their first paragraph on the Babe. Literally, it just says Babe was a pig with chicken legs sustaining on whiskey and hot dogs.
Listen, a real man's man. Okay, this is before the heart crisis of everything had kind of come into play too. So nobody gives a shit what heart disease or liver failure is. They know they're drinking a pint of whiskey every 24 minutes, and that's how they're going to get through their damn day. Okay, you're talking pre-depression days. What's going on in America that's even better than that besides what, World War I?
Speaking of hearts and liquor and everything, I mean, just moving down the list one to the Babe's I'm not going to say teammate because it was 30 years later, but I mean, Mickey Mantle, quite the drinker himself, much better athlete, one of the best baseball players of all time, also a fellow Yankee, but was shit-faced all the time, had a legendary drinking problem, eventually, damaging his liver beyond repair.
Quote unquote.
Quote unquote. Damaging his liver beyond repair. I heard that these guys with their whiskey and red meat, it's like you watch Mad Men and you're just like, man, how could people actually do that? And then you realize that like they did. They ate steaks, they drank bourbon at 9 a.m.
I just want to know,
they breathed cigarettes.
I want to know what their shits must have been like. Are you just shitting stones at this point? Because I know what a red meat diet can kind of do to you. But then key in a bunch of fucking whiskey farts and whiskey shits in the early morning at 7:45 a.m. I don't want to fucking know any of these guys. You know what I mean? Get the fuck out of my hotel room and sleep on the goddamn lobby couch because the shit you just took is about to melt the fucking paint off the walls.
Dude, I'm sure their shits were absolutely heinous. Next level radioactive.
They probably did most of it in their fucking pants at this point.
John Wayne apparently died with 55 pounds of compacted feces in his intestines.
That is because he was the Duke and one of the most legendary men.
Probably ate 30 ounces of red meat every day.
I don't even know what to say. Listen, I like steak when I get it. I don't get it a lot. I'll eat a cheeseburger if it fell from the sky. So I don't want to call myself not a red meat eater, but that's literally insane. That's near 3 pounds of meat. You know what I'm saying?
So hey, Justin, you ever heard of Bernie Carbo?
Bernie Carbo.
Bernie Carbo, you ever heard of Bernie Carbo?
He sounds like you know what he sounds like? Bernie Carbo sounds like a weight loss enthusiast that would hold his own channel on QVC where he would sell you his dietary program.
He definitely wouldn't be a fan of the ketogenic diet, which is low carb. Bernie Carbo is probably...
Tell me a little about Bernie Carbo because he loads up on weed, apparently.
Yes, yeah, he loads up on weed. So apparently, according to Complex here, anybody familiar with Bernie Carbo cannot possibly be shocked at his inclusion on this list. After all, this is a man who is caught trading baseballs to the Red Sox faithful for baggies of marijuana. And also claimed that while playing in the outfield, it looked like the stars were falling out of the sky. Coincidentally, they actually were. There was a meteor shower.
All right. I was going to say, because listen, we want to go down this road before. I think we might have all been there at one time, and at not any point in my entire life have I thought stars were falling from the sky.
What do you
under
think
that kind of influence?
What do you think the perfect level of drunk is to do things? So like, You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
if you're
well,
bowling.
Yeah, so
like,
we've all been there, right? Yeah, hell yeah. So
Yeah.
we've all been there. So you're at the bowling alley. We did it at your bachelor party. It was awesome. We go to the bowling alley. You're like a pitcher of beer in with like 3 or 4 guys, and you're like, whatever. You get one more pitcher in with the same 3 or 4 guys, and all of you are throwing strikes like it's no tomorrow. And you're like, I am the greatest goddamn bowler the fucking PGA has ever seen. Okay? And then you drink one more beer and you fucking bash the bowling ball into your knee on your follow through, and then you fucking eat shit and the bowling ball goes into the lane opposite of you. It's that kind of, there's a fine line to walk here. I think
that sounds
when you're
oddly
drinking.
specific. It sounds like you may have had an experience like that. Have you've bowled so well that the PGA has taken notice?
PBA. Yeah, you know what? The Professional Golf Association has called me several times and said, listen, we'd like to pivot our current stance on where golf is, and we'd literally just like to go the avenue of bowling. You fat-redded bastard, you look like you could be totally fit for this kind of job. Are you interested? And I had to turn it down because we have a very successful podcast.
Speaking of golf, let's talk about a man named John Daly.
Oh my God. Listen, I love that we're going to talk about golf. Last week on the show, I told you that cemeteries were almost as big of a waste of space as golf courses in this entire country. And I want to retract a little bit on that, okay? I still 100% believe that, but I do want to let the audience know in Sports Corner, as we have gone here in Decryptid Podcast, that I do actually enjoy watching golf. It is not so heinously boring as fucking baseball. So if you're going to put the PGA Tour on, right? Or, I wanted to say it like that country. PGA Tour. That's the poker tour. What was that show that we used to watch in college?
The World Series of Poker.
No, the World Poker Tour.
World Poker Tour with
World Poker Tour. It was like one jarbled, like fucking horrible word. It's
was his name Norm Chad or something? Was Norman Chad?
You can't have 2 first names as your whole name. Okay, we'll get back into this later, but you can't have 2 first names.
I want to talk quickly about golf courses being a waste of space, because that is wrong on so many levels.
Listen, why don't you just put a
if you looked
in there?
if you looked at a map, you would see that golf courses take up a tiny fraction of the entire.
I'm gonna Google this as we're talking about it. So
please do of the entire continental United States. Also, what do you have on a golf course, right? Yes, you have an area where rich men can play a game. You also have wildlife. You have manicured, protected, outdoor, nice areas with plants and trees and ponds and wildlife and everything like that. They're almost like every golf course is basically it's mini national park. It's protected,
where they pump millions of gallons of pesticides and terrible chemicals into the earth. All right.
What does it do? What does it do? Do you think a golf course is home for more animals, or do you think it destroys?
Not a chance. You find one fucking bumblebee at a goddamn golf course, I'll give you.
I've been stung by bees in the golf.
That was a wasp,
dude. I've been probably was a wasp. I've been playing, and there was a coyote on the hole behind me, and a guy kept on hitting his drives. And this guy was good. He kept on hitting his drives in the middle of the fairway, and the coyote would pounce out like a puppy, because he was, and picking up the golf ball, probably thinking it was an egg, and then getting real pissed off and just like shaking it and throwing it. And then the guy kept on hitting more golf balls. And every time he did it, the coyote would run and grab the golf ball and just run off with it.
Dude, that actually sounds hilarious.
It was really funny.
I want to be a part of that in every way.
It was really funny. And then I wanted to get closer to the coyote because I was drinking beer and in that perfect zone. And I did my standard come over here wild animal sound, which is
wait, stop. He's about to do it. So if you are driving, make sure you pull over, make sure you stop the car. You're going to be terrified. Please go.
Oh wait, no, I'm not going to do that.
He's not going to do it. You do it, you son of a bitch.
No. I was going to say the standard, what the standard everyone's wildlife call, regardless of species, which is.
That's how you call a cat.
Right, but it's also how you call
my cat
any
is now
wild
right
animal.
next to me. He heard that through my headphones. He's literally walking around my goddamn leg.
The other one is ah!
We're gonna have to edit that part out. Listen,
Just
if you were gonna guess, if you're gonna guess, first of all, take a stab at how many golf courses are in the world. Just ballpark it. Ballpark it. It's less than 1 million. I don't know if that helps you at all. It's less than 100,000. It's less than 100,000.
What? Oh, see, you're talking about. I mean, that's nothing.
That's nothing. Answer the question.
69,696.
It's oddly specific, but there's about 35,000 golf courses in the world, according to Google, Quora.com, and about 50% of them are in the United States. 50% of 35,000 golf courses in the world are in the United States. Okay, how many square miles do you think, or acres rather? How many acres do you think that takes up? This number's high.
26 no 114
not
million.
Not 114 million
114 million 420 square acres.
2.24 million acres of golf course. 2.24 million acres is a lot of trees that aren't there anymore. A lot of my air breathing is gone.
Yeah, because golf courses don't utilize trees. Are you kidding? Trees are a huge part of golf.
I'm pretty sure there's large and wide stretching spans where there's no trees in the way. That's about 3.5 thousand square miles of deforestation and pumped.
Is that squared? Oh, wait, is that square miles or square acres?
Square miles. So it says it's the equivalent of 3,500 square miles.
3,500 square miles. 3,500 square miles is all.
It's the size of Delaware.
All the golf courses in the entire world take up the size of Delaware, and you're worried about them being a waste of space? You know what's a waste of space? Your fucking face.
There we go.
You dumb motherfucker.
That's an A+ insult, and I will take it. Now let's move back on to what we were talking about.
To John Daly?
John Daly. Which is the name of an actual drink, by the way. Is it the Arnold Palmer? Is it the Arnold Palmer with vodka? Is that what it is, or is that different?
No, you are exactly right. So the Arnold Palmer is lemonade and iced tea. It's a delicious drink.
And Arnold Palmer, a stand-up individual.
Arnold Palmer is one of the greatest individuals that ever lived.
He's no yogi,
hands
but
down,
he's a great guy.
Hands down, top 3 individual to ever live. Makes Gandhi look like a bitch. And got a drink named. I mean, you can't go to a bar and get a drink named the Gandhi. You probably can, but I bet it sucks and tastes like ass sweat. It tastes like ass sweat and sand. Intense.
No, I have no legitimate response to any of that. So John Daly, golfer from 1987
I bet Gandhi's
to
drink is just loaded with bitters.
He probably smelled bad. Okay, he probably smelled bad.
He did not smell as bad as Mother Teresa, though. She was a real bitch. I'm not kidding, though. She was. We're not going to get into that, but Mother Teresa was a real bitch. She was a real bitch.
This is a real doozy
if anyone wants to do their research,
we're 47 minutes in this podcast. How much sports do you think we've covered?
So we have 13 minutes to discuss a couple more.
Yeah, we can go on a little bit longer. I don't mind pushing the hour and 30-minute mark, but I just wanted to clarify that we've been recording now for 48 minutes and some odd seconds. Okay. I think we've covered sports for approximately 4 minutes.
Well, hey, that's par for the course.
We're doing better than most of our.
But I just want to let people know that Mother Teresa was a bitch. But yeah, so John Daly had the only drug regimen that I've seen that was more impressive than John Daly's was Fear and Loathing. What's his name?
God.
Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson, yeah.
Hunter S. Thompson, man. If you ever look into his regimen, that you'll get fucked up just reading about it. But John Daly, he had other vices, man. John Daly said that he would drink like 28 Diet Cokes a day. And he'd be playing. This man.
That sounds like somebody's parents we know.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's
28 Diet Cokes. Just the caffeine intake alone is incredible.
If you can believe, he was so fucked up that the pants that he was wearing, he just thought they were khakis. but they're not.
He
They
wasn't
never
actually.
were.
He wasn't actually wearing pants.
No.
I'll tell you, just give me my goddamn pants.
While we go through a 40-hour work week for an occasional memorable weekend, John Daly is on a constant whatever the fuck I want bender that's as impulsive as it is entertaining.
That's like next level partying. Okay, so of all the people we almost tried to cover here, I think I want to have a drink with John Daly and his bleach blonde mullet. Circa 2010, by the way, like well after it was established that this is a faux pas haircut. This guy is still like whatever. I'm hammered drunk.
I got so much respect for John Daly because he knew who the fuck he was and he owned it. He owned it.
Yeah.
And more power to him. People aren't doing that these days, and the world is worse off for it. Here's a funny line here. It says Daly claims, quote, he played better when he was drunk. And as a golfer, I can say that it's possible. A theory, it's all mental. Quote, as Tiger's dick has proven a man can't focus on the links if he's not content, Daly's antics may have contributed to some drunken bouts, but he won 2 PGA majors and 4 events overall when he was tanked. Plus, if ever there was a game that needed more entertaining characters,
God,
fuck Complex.
No, that's 100% right. Because listen, if Happy Gilmore has taught us one thing, the stuffy conservative attitudes and values that golf has held forever was in desperate need of a shakeup, like John Daly and Tiger Woods. Just give it some fucking life, please. Give it some life. You know
whatever,
what I mean?
Man.
And again, I still respect this sport 10 times more than I respect baseball's fucking snooze fest of 9 innings and 14 hours of games, okay? We have an email address connected to the Decryptid Podcast?
Yeah, but I can't remember the password. So
don't give it out because we're going to get way too many hateful emails.
If we don't see an email come in, that means that we never received it.
And that means we've been doing a phenomenal job.
Let's talk about Mike Tyson for a second.
Oh, my God.
Speaking of a guy that was doing a lot of drugs.
One of the first episodes that I came into, and you and I have talked about this now too, I started rewatching wrestling. And if you want to catch one of our riffing episodes, we talk about the Hell in the Cell Mankind vs. Undertaker, 1998 King of the Ring, a phenomenal match. And you can catch that being uploaded probably today or tomorrow. And by that, I mean whenever fucking day you watch this. By the time you maybe listen to this, it's probably going to be already up. But I started watching WrestleMania, and that WrestleMania is where Mike Tyson was involved in the sport, and I thought it was so cool that he came into it. And then I watched that Hot Ones episode with Stone Cold Steve Austin last night, and he talks about the interviewer, that guy who looks like Moby 20 years ago,
Sean Evans.
He talks about how he's like, who is one of the guys that you really love that came into the sport that had nothing to do with the sport. He talks about how, and so Stone Cold talks about Mike Tyson and the amount of respect that he had because Mike Tyson was like a super wrestling enthusiast and apparently really knew his shit about the sport. I thought that was so cool because, and I think a lot of us kind of feel this way when you kind of listen to Mike Tyson talk, or you just kind of, you don't really get a lot of value from some of the things you might hear about him, but a fascinating person to say the least.
Dude, Mike Tyson, I think, is one of the few true redemption stories in the world. I mean, like, he obviously did a lot of bad shit when he was younger, but dude, he became the heavyweight champion of the world when he was 19 years old. He was 19-0 with 19 knockouts, and it was rare that a fight went more than 120 seconds. Dude, I mean, the guy was an absolute freak of nature. If you go on, anyone listening to this, hopefully we get 20 people to listen to this, 30 people. Anyone listening to this, we'll just keep on reloading the YouTube link.
Just refresh the page, okay, if you can for us. Just hit the like and subscribe button. Just keep refreshing the page. We'll call it a day.
But if there are some YouTube videos, go and just look up Mike Tyson highlights, or there's an hour-long video that I think Mike Tyson helped put, he worked with someone to put the video together, and then he posted it on YouTube, and it's all of his knockouts, and it is amazing. And I think it's in chronological order, and he would punch people and miss them, and like glancing blows off the top of their head, and they would be knocked out, stone fucking cold, knocked out, fight over.
It's crazy.
And I mean, you watch any other boxers, man. I mean, with the exception of a few, of a few. And if we had our boy John on here, he'd tell stories about some other boxers. But I mean, no one hit like Mike Tyson hit.
I think I remember somebody. I don't remember who it was, but one of the um characterizations of his hits, like somebody described it as literally, it was like the man had 2 cinder blocks on his fist, and he had that. You imagine that thing coming at you in punch force, and that's basically what it felt like. And you're talking these people. What do they wear in boxing? 12-ounce gloves.
I think that they were at the time. At the time, they were doing 12-ounce gloves.
So 12-ounce gloves, which are less than an actual pound, and you're talking about this thing feeling like it hit you like a cinder block in the face. And I cannot possibly imagine somebody at 19 years old kicking my ass. But now, when you look at somebody like Mike Tyson, it's unimaginable that how he couldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he was fucked up on everything. So, like, yeah, he came up so young, and his mentor died when he was still on the come up. His Customato, which is Customato is one of the more famous characters in boxing history. He was a trainer. He would take kids off the streets, and he would fix their lives up, and he would turn them into champions. Mike Tyson was his prized goose, and unfortunately, Customato, even by the time he was working with Mike Tyson, was probably in his 60s or something. Maybe late 50s, but I don't think either he was older or he died relatively young. Mike Tyson didn't have a ton of time with him, but was an excellent influence on Mike Tyson. And obviously Mike Tyson, someone who had never had a father figure, was relentlessly bullied as a kid, really took to Customato, and then really didn't handle his death very well at all, and then started spiraling out of control. But then also, like, a lot of the other stuff that happened with him, with I forget the name of his wife, but like he went on and did an interview with Barbara Walters in like 2020 or something like that, or the other one, or Dateline. And she, like, everyone says like Mike Tyson looked like he was drugged up there, but like not even on his own accord, but like she was just saying the most fucked up shit, like making him seem like he was horrible, and that like she was in like that she was actually in charge of anything, and like Mike Tyson just stood there and took it. And then you see Mike Tyson in other interviews, and Mike Tyson doesn't take anything. Doesn't take anything.
Terrifying kind of guy,
Yeah,
with a terrifying persona.
Yeah,
with a voice that doesn't convey terrifying.
He said to a journalist at a press conference, "I'll fuck you till you love me."
Didn't he say, you said, I'm going to eat his children at a time where
he said that to Lennox Lewis. He said that there was a post-fight conference. Mike Tyson was one of the greatest shit talkers of all time, but he said at I'm going to fuck you till you love me, blank, a slur that sounds like Danny Tanner's real last name. Well, yeah, I'm not going to say it, but
I got you. I didn't know where the hell that was going.
That's what he said. But yeah,
insane.
He said to Lennox Lewis in a post-fight matchup, I think before they fight, he said something like, "I'm the best in the world," blah blah blah.
Yes. I'm going to eat his children. I'm going to eat his children. And listen, when you have a speech impediment like that, and your voice is childish and babyish, and then your fists are concrete slabs, that's an immediate pants shitter for me, right? That's a pants shitting moment, and I would be more than terrified of somebody saying that to me. And you talk about too, and Muhammad Ali always did this, and this is before the internet was the internet, where you could fucking talk whatever shit you wanted and people would say the most heinous and offensive things. So telling somebody you're going to eat their children was actually a terrifying thing to say to somebody. And I mean, still to this day, if you kind of think about it, pretty fucking terrifying.
This is actually all of what he said, and it is so sick. He goes, so he's getting interviewed by Jim Gray. He says, "I trained probably 2 or 3 weeks for this fight. I had to bury my best friend." I think he's talking about Customato, or he's talking about somebody else, I'm not sure. "And I dedicate this fight. I wasn't going to fight. I dedicate this fight to him. I was going to rip his heart out because I'm the best ever." Then Tyson's getting real pumped up. He starts going hot, and he goes, "I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lennox is a conqueror? No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever." There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from their cloth. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah. And then he walks the and then he walks the fuck off the stage.
And the mic drop preceding absolute mic drops. Absolutely. Like a legend, an absolute legend. And had his moments that were not so legendary, that's for sure.
Oh, like when he bit Evander Holyfield's ear off because he was losing the fight?
I think a lot of the correlation between a lot of these people is that at the time of their professional career, they're very young. They're 10 years younger than we are now, and I can't imagine being handed that kind of fame and fortune in a situation where you might not be ready to handle it. And there's plenty of people who get into showbiz and Hollywood and sports who are ready for it. They were kind of built for that kind of life persona. But I think more times than not, plenty of these people are not. I think plenty of these people kind of come into this situation and are kind of almost gifted this moment. They know they're good and maybe they don't know how good they are, but these, as in most situations in heavy drug use, this kind of becomes their crutch to kind of get through these kind of moments. And I think on a way more, you could kind of drop the comedy act for just a second, on a way more serious note, that's kind of the haunting part about a lot of these people, is that, you are face down the barrel of the fame gun, in whatever kind of capacity that you're in when you do these kind of things. And I think that turning to these drugs and alcohol is kind of your only window of normality. It's kind of that only moment. And a lot of these people share, and a lot of addicts kind of share that mentality where this is like their only time of normal behavior in their head, and it
Well, absolutely. I mean, think about a social situation that you don't want to be in. I mean, what helps? A couple cocktails. Now,
absolutely.
imagine a lot of these guys that have been, they've been training their entire lives. They don't have social lives. They've been training their entire lives. So they get thrown out and thrust into these social situations at the highest level of pressure,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
they don't know how to act. So they have a couple drinks and they think it makes them act normal, or at least they're comfortable with being in that situation.
Yep.
And obviously it's very, very easy to go too far.
Yeah.
Man,
And very self-destructive.
yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, have you ever seen Bryce Harper give an interview? And I'm not talking about a post-game interview. You know who Bryce Harper is, right? Because you hate
So,
baseball.
for the Nationals?
He was for the Nationals. He just got traded to the Phillies.
Phillies.
Yeah, he's
I know,
a beast.
I know a few things.
Yeah, he
go.
just
Baseball sucks.
He just walked off the Phillies against the Cubs with a grand slam in the bottom of the ninth. Anyhow, so he's amazing. He's one of the highest paid ball players in the major leagues. But you listen to that guy give an interview, and I don't think it's that he's stupid. He just doesn't know how to speak to somebody. He's obviously like very shy. But I mean, the guy has been on a baseball field his entire life. He probably had one of those overbearing fathers that I'm sure he loves, but dad was probably a huge asshole. Practice, whatever. Like, you can tell he doesn't know how to have a conversation with people. He doesn't know how to speak well. And it's like, I can just imagine, like, he probably, on the baseball field, he's God, right? But then if he goes and ever listens back to one of his interviews, he's probably just like, oh man, dude, I'm sure I'm not Bryce Harper behind a microphone.
He's a
So then
real
maybe,
Ken Shamrock on the mic.
oh
Right?
God, yeah. So like, and then you think about that, and you think like, oh, well, maybe I'll try to have a cocktail before I do my next interview. And then, hey, the next interview goes kind of well. So it's like, you always feel like you got to have a cocktail before, and then before you know it, you're drunk, you're spiraling out of control, and then you're throwing no hitters on acid. And that's how we come full circle.
And that's how we talk about Doc Ellis and the famed drug abuse and alcohol abuse situation that is rampant in sports, even as we talk about it right now. I agree. And like I said, we can joke around and mess around with it all we want and talk about that's the best part, I think, about the way we format our podcast, is that we're going to take it seriously, but not obviously that seriously. But like I said, when you talk about some of the background issues, that these guys all had moments where they could have kind of completed a normal situation, but drugs and alcohol kind of took effect. And I'll just say for the sake of saying it, that if you feel like you got a problem, man, talk to somebody. Like, if you feel like you got a situation, get help. Like there's always an answer to that. And no matter what Seth and I joke around about, we all have family members that are like that, and we all know people that are like that. So make sure you support them and make sure that you get the help that they need, and then you maybe get the help you need. So sorry to downplay and get all fucking salty Sally about this shit, but I think it was important to say about all the jokes that we made today.
Yeah, for sure. And also, if there's no one there that can help you, just play more sports. Just play more sports. Keep on doing drugs. Keep on drinking alcohol, and things might work out for you. Also, there's a link under this article. It says Lamar Odom is quitting porn, and Candy quote, "I'm trying to be better."
I didn't know Lamar Odom was in porn.
No, watching porn. Not
all right.
Not shooting porn. He says Lamar claims to have had sex with more than 2,000 women in his life. Quote, "Sex was a trigger for me to do drugs," Odom told People, "because you double up on that good feeling." Cheers to that, Lamar.
Yeah, man. Sorry that you're giving up porn. Why don't you just open up an incognito tab on your phone like the rest of us and just deal with your life? But yeah, good times. Good times.
Anyhow, thanks for coming along on this journey.
Are we done?
Listeners? Yeah, I think it's about an hour. I think we want to go.
We are a little over an hour, but no big deal. We don't really have a time frame, but we do like to keep it within an hour, just so that you guys aren't like, we already turned these fools off.
After an hour with the door in my office closed, it's 9 degrees in here.
I gotta get out. You can see the perspiration building up on your nose.
On the old schnauzer. If you see this on YouTube, this is where you're going to be listening to this. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more like this.
Absolutely. I think
blah 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 blah.
You cut out there. You cut out there. So make sure you try to get back in the mic. I don't think it's your mic. I just think you're cutting out weird. But go ahead and play what you were saying.
Turn in my head. Yeah. Just also.
Oh, now you're just gone.
I'm gone.
Oh no, that was on me. That was on my end.
Jesus, Justin. I think you're supposed to be the professional.
Yep, I don't hear nothing. Okay, well, lady, you can hear me, right? Smile and nod. Okay, yes. So you can hear me. I just want to make a special shout out to our graphics designer. That was like really important to me, that I really wanted to take care of this. I wanted to give a shout out to Greppo. You can find him on Twitter at GREHPO, the Goblin King. The Goblin King's not part of the @ and I want to shout out him out on the same location on Twitch when he streams. He is the guy that kind of created all the logos and the overlays that you see. I'm going to flip to our other logo that you saw kind of towards the beginning. This guy does a lot of work and mostly pro bono on our end. I really just want to thank you a lot, man. I really appreciate we really appreciate the work you're doing. So thank you very much. And for my end, because I can't hear Seth anymore because my audio is a little fucked up, I want to thank everybody else. Give me the deuces sign, Seth, when you're ready to sign off here. You guys take it easy, and we'll see you on the next cast, all right? Later, bitches.
Peace.